Well, Jeff, you have been testing some very interesting equipment, and I've got to confess, you have me waiting here, very anxious to see what your results are between the Wacom Tablet and the Huion Tablet. So this is the $350 Wacom Intuos Pro versus the $80 Huion Micro, and they, each of them depend on price a little bit depending on what size you get, but it's essentially the exact same thing. The Huion is obviously made to look exactly like the Wacom, just a lot less expensive. So don't keep me waiting any longer. You've been testing both of these for a little while, Jeff. Just lay it on me. Which one is better?
Wacom.
All right, the Wacom is. So what features do you like on the Wacom over the Huion?
So there's a few differences. It's fit and finish. It's professional features. There's definitely an advantage to Wacom. I mean, there's a reason that it's that much more expensive. Well, there's a reason it's more expensive. I don't know about that much more expensive. Let's talk about some of the key differences. Now, I'm still going to spend some more time. So this isn't like my full review yet. I'm going to be doing one on Photo Taco later after I've had more time with Wacom. I just switched to Wacom last week. So I've got a week in with Wacom, and I've had 2 months in with the Huion tablet. So my experience may change as I get more time with it and as I discover more differences in how it works. But my initial reaction here, it's not a whole lot different from an overall experience perspective. They're very, very similar in the overall experience. But Wacom has a little bit smoother feel. And when I say smoother feel, I mean that the physical pen contact with the graphics tablet surface, that contact is a smoother feel.
So is it like rough going over the Huion, or what do you mean by
rough,
smoother?
But maybe more like on the Huion, it feels like you're on paper, and on the Wacom, you're on glass. Kind of more of a feel that way.
Okay. And is it more laggy? Like as I'm moving my brush around, is it laggy?
I haven't found it to be more laggy. That I was really wondering if that would be the case, but the Huion, as I was using, I was like, it feels just like great. I don't see any real big lag that's there, and for that regard, they feel about the same to me.
Okay, so what about the Huion then? Is it good enough? Like, can you recommend somebody to buy this?
Yeah, especially if you go, as you go like I did. When I heard Nick Page and Brian, I've heard a lot of photographers just talk about them like crazy, or it seemed like every training video I was watching, they're using a pen. You can see it as they're moving their hands. They have the pen in their hand still.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, there's got to be something to this thing. I got to go check it out. And when I went to Wacom's site, I went, well, not for that price. I'm not checking it out. That was just too much for my hobbyist budget, and curiosity and was all it was there. But my workflow was working just fine with the mouse. There wasn't anything broken to say I need to go do this. So a curiosity factor for that kind of cost, there was no way I was going to spend that much money.
So
when I went over,
would you recommend it? You can say go buy the Huion. It's great.
Yeah, I don't hesitate in saying it provides a really good graphics tablet experience for some of the tools that you use, and that's kind of how I'm using it. I'm not using it full time. I know a lot of people have said that's the only way to make it so you get really proficient with it. I still don't like using it for a lot of things, especially changing sliders in Lightroom. I hate doing that. It's a very bad experience, in my opinion, to try to do that. So, no hesitation at all. If you want to try it out, it might even be something where if you try it out and then you run into some limitations. So another limitation between the two is the Huion brand has a driver where you can configure some buttons. It's very clear that they really kind of copied exactly what Wacom builds. You can take a look and you can see they've got buttons mapped very closely, very similarly to the Wacom brand.
Yeah, they look almost identical.
You can go configure the buttons so that they do it. But what you can't do, Wacom will let you configure those buttons different by application that you are running, and Huion won't.
Oh, you know what would be cool? That just hit me. We were talking about the fit and finish. Last week we talked about MIDI to LR, the program, so you can get a MIDI controller and use like physical sliders. What if there was a graphics tablet that also had a set of sliders on the side so you could physically slide over for your exposure and stuff like that in Lightroom? Now we're talking. That'd be cool.
if they could reset, like if it was a software reset. That's the thing I don't like about any of those sliders. Those are physical, and that means wherever you left the slider, you either have to move it enough that it gets back to 0 and go back and forth.
Or dials. Go to dial then.
Yeah, dials work better, or touch. If it was just touch, and so then you touch, and wherever you touch is where it's moving. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about.
Okay, so we said Wacom is better, and the reason are had more configurable things in the settings, like mapping the buttons per program and things like that. You said it, and it had a better fit and finish, but smoother feel.
The pen does not require a battery.
Okay.
The Huion requires a battery, so I have a rechargeable, and I had to go change it. It lasted about. Well, it depends on if I remembered to turn it off or not.
What kind of battery is that?
It's just a normal AAA battery. AAA. So I have a rechargeable that I drop in there, and it's great. There's no problem there. But I would often come to go do something, and I'm like, shoot, I left the darn thing on. So it doesn't even auto turn off. It
That's annoying.
Turns off.
That should.
So that's kind of the difference in some of the pro stuff there, and you can tell Wacom's really spent some time there. I do have a concern so Connor was nice enough to send me the Wacom so that I could try it out and compare between the two. And this was clearly his day-to-day driver tablet that he was using in his editing work. It's a very well-loved tablet. And the pen, I'm worried it may be too used, because I'm having trouble where sometimes as I click down on the pen tip to do like emulate a mouse click button press, sometimes it never receives an up, like you released the pen tip. And
Brian,
so
you use a Wacom tablet. Have you had that same problem?
Not that problem particularly, but it does take some time to get used to when you're, like Jeff was saying, with the sliders. In Lightroom, I don't even use the Wacom tablet for that. I'll just use the tab with the arrow keys, and then shift tab to go back up and down.
Mm-hmm.
On the I'll once in a while I also use the Apple Magic Pad. When I'm doing things like that, I'll use my hand for that.
So you have a Magic Pad, a mouse, and a Wacom tablet on your table?
I don't have a mouse.
Okay, no mouse. Okay.
No mouse. Those I haven't seen one of those since 2010.
Oh, I love my mouse. You can't take it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm suspecting that I need to do something about the pen. I probably need to replace just the pen, which I already tried to find on the site, and so far that's not gone well either. Like I expected him to say, "Oh yeah, replacement pen, here you go." And I haven't found where that is. There's tips. You can place the nibs in the end of the pen.
Yeah, they sell the pen. It's like $70. It's ridiculous.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to go see. It's worth it for my review to go spend them $70 to get the pen. So I think I'm gonna have to do that. Make sure that I give it a fair shake, because just from that regard, it's gotten stuck enough that it's not good.
Yeah, you know what? I've had mine for a little over a year now, and once in a while it doesn't get stuck, but this is a bad thing. It just stops working sometimes, and I have to completely unplug the USB, and sometimes I have to reboot Photoshop.
That's a problem.
I mean, that's rare, but it's been happening more, maybe like once every couple of weeks lately. It's not good.
Not good. So the ultimate question then, Jeff, I tested a Wacom tablet, and it didn't have enough utility to convert me from the mouse. I think I'm just too stuck on using a mouse. Yeah, I totally get it. I totally get there are some things you can do with a Wacom tablet that you just can't with a mouse in Photoshop. And sometimes I do want that. But more than that, I want the efficiency and quickness of just using a mouse for everyday computing.
Come on, Jim, give it 2 weeks.
I gave it more than 2 weeks. I should try it again, but I've given it more than 2 weeks, and I just wasn't converted. How about you?
Is a big convert.
Yeah, there are a lot of converts. Brian, you're obviously a convert here, except you still use something else for your other stuff. It's just for Photoshop, huh?
No, well, I use it for if I'm not using editing, I use my Magic Pad. I don't use the Wacom for that. At that, I don't see the point in that.
Okay.
Like just regular day-to-day use for the computer, like email, whatever, browsing. I'm not going to use the Wacom for that.
So, Jeff, after 1 month, is a tablet, either one, whichever you pick, is a tablet an essential piece of gear for you?
Yeah, it's an essential piece of gear for me, but it's not something I'm going to be using more than probably about 10% of the time.
And 10% of the time in Photoshop or 10% of the time in general?
In general, so Lightroom and Photoshop, I wouldn't use it outside of those tools at all. There's just, the mouse is way more efficient. I think as a user interface tool, the mouse fits more closely. There's a reason we've used mice for so long for those things. It fits for those activities. But for adjustment brushes and for doing some like selections and refining of masks in Photoshop, and the adjustment brushes in Lightroom, oh, it's fabulous for that. So I have it set up where I move the tablet down over the top of my mouse pad when I'm doing those activities, do them, it's great. And then when I'm kind of done, I move it back up and go back to the mouse.
I'd like to also mention on the Wacom how you can use the pad itself, like to pinch and zoom. And then I often like a piece of paper when you're drawing to rotate it also. I have it set that way. And that can be very handy at times because, when you're drawing right to left, sometimes you just want to draw in a different angle. And sometimes the canvas has to be turned a certain way where it just seems to make more sense,
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Well,
and
Jeff,
that pinch to zoom and the touch stuff that you can do on the Wacom is not available on the Huion. So that's another difference.
that is a big difference. Yeah. Well, thank you for that review. That's cool.